By acquiring the first B2B clients, you bring your SaaS startup to the next level. And how to do that, you will learn in this interview with Masha, who created a successful AI cybersecurity compliance tool. And instead of building the tool and then hoping for the best, she went to a conference and talked with over 100 people, and 30 people were interested in that tool. By doing so, she learned a lot of valuable lessons. She learned what important is for the target audience, and she learned that the idea is worth pursuing. She will explain you how to network properly on conferences and what to do afterwards. She will also tell you some good ideas and advice in regards to your LinkedIn approach.
Hi, Will. Well, thank you so much for having me here. And indeed, I've launched my startup around 5 months ago, and it's been quite a ride. And I think for a lot of early stage startups, that's one of the main questions, right? How do I get the first clients? And we're talking about B2B SaaS. So how do I get my first B2B client? How do I go from, here's the product, maybe my first version of the product, to who is actually willing to pay for that? And how do I find those people? So very happy to share my insights. I hope they'll be useful to your audience.
Definitely. I think many software service startups, they focus too much on the product, but not enough on sales. And then maybe there is also a misconception of creating a pretty good or amazing product, and then it will sell itself. But I guess it's not that easy.
Yeah, I've been in the tech world for a while now. And of course, you've meet very talented guys or girls that build amazing products, and they have amazing technical expertise. But often enough, they're lacking certain skills, how to actually sell that. And to be honest, I think sales should go before development. So I think before you start building something, you need to validate the concept, right? So how can you do it? I think it's totally okay to sell thin air before you build the product. So to validate the idea, you can actually start selling first before your product is ready. You can already start talking to your potential target audience and listen to them more than you speak. So then your product can follow, right? And a lot of the times, indeed, people spend months and months building something. And then at the end of the day, maybe the market is not ready. Maybe the market wants something else. And of course, that's a disappointing part when people are not willing to pay for something that you spend months developing.
How did you start with your startup?
For me, one of the most important things in business is, human connection and human capital. I've been in the startup world before, but in the last 5 years, I've been more in a service-based industry. So I was working with startups, I was working with tech companies, and, I felt like I want to build something, but the moment was never right. And to be honest, the moment is never going to be right. So it's always scary, but it's not going to get less scary. You just need to get out there and do it. So what really changed, my course of thinking is I went to one of the meetups in Amsterdam back in August, and I met one guy. He is a cybersecurity expert. He's a technical guy, and he's been a CTO of several IoT companies and some startups as well. And then he also shifted to more like a service-based consultancy role. So we were both talking about how the market is changing, how it's hard to find clients as a freelancer, things like this. And he also wanted to build a product. And it's not like right away we started building something. We joined our forces and started going to different conferences and events and just observing the market. And in November, I was like, okay, you know what? Let's just do it. Let's write down maybe 10 ideas that we have, combining our skills and market trends, and start validating them. And, we had the whole grading system, from 1 to 10, on different parameters, which idea do you think is better? So we narrowed it down to several, and then we ended up with one. And then we just, we decided, let's just do it. And we gave ourselves 3 months to validate it, whether, it's worth pursuing or not. And I think now that we have, maybe 4 or 5 months that passed, I think we're happy to say that we validated the idea. We got the traction going, and we're ready to develop it further.
Yeah, you mentioned you have already 6 clients. Is it correct?
Yeah, so let's say we have 6 people that pay for a product.
Yeah, that's a big step. I think many startups, they don't even accomplish that. I mean, if you are able to attract some clients, then it seems like there is potential. You can always scale later, and then, but the beginning is the most difficult. I was wondering, did you have some expectations on those 10 ideas, and were you kind of right, or were you surprised that what you thought will be good ideas didn't respond so well?
Like I go to a lot of conferences and sometimes like I look like, oh, these guys are doing what we're thinking about. That was one of our 10 ideas. So definitely I think they came from a valid point. Like all those 10 ideas, they were coming from either we saw these problems in our closest network or we experienced ourselves. So I think they were valid. But for me, I'm a salesperson, right? For me, one of the main parameters was that if I have to sell this product, that decision makers, they have to be, like constant in my life. So do I want to spend a lot of time in their industry events? Do I have access to this industry? So for example, if you have a fintech solution, right? A lot of the times you have to sell to people either from fintech industry or to the banks. And I don't have access to this industry. It's quite, I would say, closed off industry. And I just don't have access to that. So for me, that was a no-go. And another concept was we would have to sell to HR, which, to be honest, I just don't want to hang out at their events. I don't have access to that either. So for me, that was one of the main parameters, because at the end of the day, your product, you need to sell it. And for me, selling to mid-sized companies and the decision makers being like CTOs or security architects or CISOs is the easiest. I kind of speak their language, and my co-founder comes from that background. I go to a lot of tech events anyways, and I already had, the whole network build up. So for me, that was one of the main, like criteria when I chose the idea. But I think all the ideas were valid, by the way, like in one way or another.
Those ideas were not made just in your brain in theory, but they came from real life experiences, from real life demands, and so they were pretty solid already.
I would say so. Yeah, I mean, I was just observing, like what my clients, like different startups did before, or what kind of inefficiencies there were in, workflows of my, like friends or my, immediate network. So definitely there were some pain points that we could solve, but we just decided to narrow it down and focus on one. And I think, I think it's going quite well. We have a good demand for the product at the moment.
Was it always clear to you that you are going to target B2B clients?
Yes, because the first thing that I did, I built a B2C startup. And after that, I was like, I'm never again building a B2C startup, like never again. And
wow,
I think
tell me more.
I think it's a natural like reaction. Like most of the time when people go into business, if they build a business, they try to solve a problem that they experience themselves, right? And also the other thing is that when you hear about big unicorns, a lot of them are B2C because of this big network effect. So naturally, a lot of people start from B2C, but with B2C, you know that the survival rate is quite, low, but the opportunities are quite big as well. So I know that it requires so much, marketing budget in order to do a B2C concept well. You need to constantly experiment with different positioning, with different creatives. You need to do a lot of advertisement, a lot of content marketing. And I've done that before in a very low budget as my first startup. And we were quite creative with our approaches. And it was interesting. I've learned a lot. But after that, I was like, if I ever build a product, it's only going to be B2B. So here I am now.
What do you prefer in B2B compared to B2C? It's I can imagine it's the clients, you need fewer clients, and you can sustain your business from that.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
I guess it's more about, this human connection, human relationship. So if you already have quite a strong network and understanding of the industry, I think it's much easier to do in business development. So it's a bit more on one-on-one sales versus one-to-many. So you don't have to put so much money into content marketing and so much money into ads. You can go to certain events or you can mobilize your network and already get solid leads or at least solid feedback about your concept. So for me, it just comes more naturally. And as you mentioned, you need fewer clients in order to cover for, like your business to function properly.
What were the next steps after you decided to choose one particular business idea?
Yeah, so I told to myself and I told to my co-founder, let's be very pragmatic. Let's not be too attached to the idea. So we gave ourselves 3 months and we said that if within 3 months we manage to get paying customers and, certain validation, we can continue with that. If we don't, then let's maybe switch to either other ideas or pivot a little bit this one. So that was definitely kind of the way of thinking. So the first thing that I've done, let's see. So obviously we build a landing page and, roll down, normal kind of positioning and copy just so we have something and started a LinkedIn page. And then I found one conference in London that, focused particularly on our target audience or at least assumed target audience. So we went to London and we just booked a lot of meetings in advance and we left a lot of room for serendipity. So we just talked to people like pretending like we have a product already, or at least, trying to listen to what their pain points are and understanding if this solution would make their lives easier, if they're willing to pay for that, how much they would be willing to pay for that, whether they're using our competitors. So it was more about listening. I mean, you can call it customer development. So it was just the fastest way for me to validate yes or no. So I told to my co-founder, okay, let's go to this conference in London and let's put certain KPIs. And if we reach them and if we feel like their feedback is positive, let's continue building. And if no, it's okay. Let's not be too emotional attached. We can switch and experiment and try to build something else.
It's very interesting, this point of not being attached and giving yourself 3 months. I think it's a really good idea. There are many kind of influencer success motivators who are telling never to give up, but in theory, it sounds good. And with those exceptions, like Steve Jobs, and so they are huge successes, it might be true. But in reality, I think there are so many entrepreneurs struggling for too long. And if they just stepped back and reevaluate and maybe even paused for half a year, 1 year, they could go with a fresh mind and develop a different idea. You don't need to be stuck in one single idea.
Yeah, I think it's a very thin line between being persistent and consistent and being delusional. So honestly, what helps me is just numbers. So for example, let's go back to my conference example. I had KPI, I need to talk to at least 100 people and a lot of them would not be relevant, right? It's just serendipity. So you talk to someone and they're completely from a different industry, it's fine. And I need to bring back at least 30 leads. And by leads, we call people that expressed interest. They're right decision makers. So not some junior salesperson that just needs to say yes. And if it's going to be less than 30, if it's 20, it's still possible. But if it's 5, then definitely no. And if I haven't talked to 100 people, maybe I just didn't do enough of a good job. So pure numbers help. So if beforehand you and your co-founder or your stakeholders identify what would be definitely green light, yes, let's continue, and what definitely is a sign of a failure, I think it will become easier to be rational about it and to not be too emotional attached, because at the end of the day, everyone is talking about data-driven approach. But with your startup, of course, you can be emotional attached to the idea. But if the numbers are not there, maybe it's the reality check that you need to hear, right?
How did you come up with those numbers? It's probably you need some experience to understand what is considered a success.
Yeah, well, I mean, it helps that I've been doing like sales and business development for other companies for the last 5 years. So I've seen how it, works out in different companies. So I kind of knew, but I mean, it can be very intuitive. It's like you can just calculate if you talk to 100 people, and then 10 of them say yes, or if you talk to 200 people, I mean, you can just kind of calculate what is a sign of success. And also, it could be that the event is wrong, right? So I think you need to use multiple channels in order to validate that.
How did you feel when you went to this event and had this goal in mind, and you knew if you don't succeed, you have to give up this startup or this idea at least?
It's an interesting question. I think like there was not that much pressure because again, I was not that involved yet in the idea and I was not spending so much time building it. But yeah, I mean, there was a little bit of pressure nevertheless. So I don't know. I just felt like every moment that I'm not talking to people, I'm losing that moment. So I just knew that for 2 days nonstop, I have to just go out there and talk to as many people as possible because you never know, like a person in the line to get a coffee could be, your potential customer, or it could be the person that gives you amazing insights. So I was just like in the always on mode. After that, I just wanted to be in a dark, quiet room for a while. But I think like at least I managed to cover quite a lot of different people.
How do you choose, or how did you choose whom to talk with?
Like during the conference?
Yes.
No,
Do you have a strategy or just random
okay.
anyone?
So I always try to cover it with people that are exhibiting because right away you already see what they're doing. So you can be like, okay, this is our potential target audience. But another downside of that is a lot of the times people that are exhibiting their marketing or sales. So they might not be the decision makers. So we covered, let's say, in half of the day, all the relevant booths, right? So all the relevant exhibitors. And after that, it was just seriously purely serendipity, just talking to as many people as possible. Like, I don't know, the moment when you are not talking to someone, go outside. People that are chilling outside of the conference are usually taking a break, they're more relaxed. Talk to 3 or 4, then go grab a coffee. While you are grabbing a coffee, you're standing in the line. In the UK, they love to stand in the line. So talk to them. And then once you grab your coffee, there is a chill area where you can talk to more people. So I think you just need to go all in. If it's a matter of you want to continue with your startup, yes or no, I think you just need to push yourself and talk to people, have this energy going. Otherwise, you would always feel like, what if, and that's
So
not a
true,
nice
so
feeling.
true. Yeah, oftentimes people focus on easier things like website development, logo development, and it feels like they are doing the right things and they feel kind of okay with themselves. But in reality, it's just an excuse not to go outside of the comfort zone.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's great to have a website, but it will take time before you actually will start getting like organic inbound, right? I mean, SEO is an amazing tool and it works, but it will take forever. And if you need to validate your concept fast, that's not the best way. And I would also not recommend to start paid ads to validate your concept because you're not even sure that your positioning is right and that your target audience is right. So often you will just end up wasting the budget without actually getting the feedback. So I think the only real way is to talk to people, do the customer development, whether it's through your personal network or from industry events. You just have to talk to people.
Do you have some advice how to talk with people on such events?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, of course, a part of it is to be a little bit like you have to be a little bit aggressive, not in a sense that you have to, attack people, but you definitely need to take that first step. But also, I feel like it's very important to recognize your environment. I've seen some people jumping on, visitors with investor badge on it and start to pitch the startup. That's not the right approach. I feel like you need to read the room and approach people when they're more relaxed. So if you see two people talking to each other, don't interrupt their conversation. Wait for one of them, to maybe go grab a drink or just feel more relaxed. And then you can strike a conversation and try to find some middle ground. Meaning the simple question is like, how is this event going for you? Are you enjoying the day already? It's an opening. And then you can just talk about normal things, and slowly you will ask him what he's doing, what his role in the company is, and you can ask him questions that would, help you understand whether the company is struggling with a certain, aspect that your product solves. So I don't know, it's just people overcomplicate that a lot, I think. There shouldn't be like such a sophisticated, complicated strategy behind network, and it's just we all are human. People go to events because they want to connect with others, they want to explore what's on the market, they want to sell their solutions, and they want to build partnerships. So I've never really had like such a harsh rejection. Yes, sometimes the person is busy, so he will tell you, sorry, I'm busy now, but that's not the worst thing you can hear. But most of the time, I mean, I got, like I met my co-founder networking. All the clients that I have right now, more or less, I met them either networking or through my network. So it's just natural in a way. So if it's not within your comfort zone, you have to step out of it and start talking to people.
And it gets better with every time you practice it, I guess.
100%. Yeah. Like with anything.
How important is small talk in those situations?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's important to connect with people. Like you cannot just start pitching your solution or pitching your product. Definitely there should be a level of, like connecting. And I don't really like the concept of small talk where you know that it's leading somewhere. Like, that, okay, we're going to finish talking about the weather, or we're going to finish talking about how the last speaker was, and now I'm waiting for you to sell something. I think it's important to connect with them in some level, and maybe you share something, maybe you are in the same industry and you can discuss the latest trends, or maybe have some people in common that you just, you connected on LinkedIn and you see connections in common. There's always something and you can go from there. I think no one should just sell right away. It's too pushy and it's aggressive. But most of the time, people are very open to talk about their experiences, and natural, they can also share their experiences at work. And if your solution can help either them or their colleagues, I think they will be pretty open to listen.
When do you decide to leave a person and go to another person?
I think you need to be brutally honest with yourself. We all have limited time. So if you understand that if you're talking to someone and that's either completely like not the relevant industry for you, or the person is not a decision maker, it's totally okay to wrap it up and leave. Because at the same time, you would waste his time and your time. So I've helped my clients to do a bit of like business development on the ground, and I always say that look, like you have certain qualification questions and make them sound natural, but you need to understand whether you're talking to the right person, yes or no. And once you understand that it's a no, just finish up the conversation politely and move on. You don't have all the time in the world. So, yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. Even in times where online is so important and everyone is thinking, I'm networking on LinkedIn. But on social events, it's next level. It's much closer with human to human interaction.
Yeah, I remember how during Corona times, we all were talking about like how the future of work is so different. And we had this, huge trend of moving to online. But at the end of the day, the industry events play such an important role in sales and business development. But again, it's not the only thing. So LinkedIn strategy is so important. Like you have to be consistent with your personal brand. You need to constantly do outreach through email and through LinkedIn. So it's not substituting, right? So if you go to events, it doesn't mean that you have to stop putting content on LinkedIn. So it has to be multiple channels. But still, to be honest, the human to human contact is very important.
So it's especially important when you don't have a clear product, clear strategy, clear target audience. Because, if you start positioning yourself on LinkedIn, optimizing your profile, and you realize it's not the right target audience, not the right direction, you invest too much time and work. So it's easier to just talk with 100 people, and then it's much faster. It's clear much faster.
Yeah, absolutely applies on LinkedIn, and in general online, you have a lot of those vanity metrics. right? So like you can say that, oh, this post got so many likes and X amount of comments, so it must be that we're moving in the right direction. Whereas probably my most popular LinkedIn post was some meme about B2B SaaS. Is it going to bring me clients? Probably no. But did it get a lot of engagement? Yes. So indeed, I think like talking to people is super important. And I can tell you that that conference that we went to, we went with one idea. And we had an assumption, but then when we came out of it, we actually understood that we have to shape our product a bit differently, because the problem that we wanted to solve, yes, it's there, but there's actually a deeper problem that we didn't think about. And we're like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And we heard it like over and over again, but you have to really listen in order to understand.
What were the next steps, and how far were you with the development of your product when you went to this event?
Honestly, it wasn't ready.
Mhm.
So it was in the development stage, and still the product is not perfect. It's not fully ready. So right now, what we're focusing on is to, doing beta tests, and then implementing the feedback and improving the product. But honestly, like from that event, like I got leads, but I wasn't able to offer them anything. Like the product was
Mhm.
not ready at all. So it was mainly for me for the customer development side, and to understand whether, first of all, whether we should continue, yes or no, and if yes, in which shape and form. So I think it gave us clarity in terms of strategy, but it wasn't like for sales. No.
What is your plan, or with those 30 leads? Do you think you will make some of them to clients, or was it just pure to verify the business idea?
No, actually, one of them became our client, like once the product was more or less ready. I mean, I'm keeping them engaged, so I always like, I added all of them on LinkedIn. With some of them, we had like, actually a nice conversation. So we keep in touch about, certain things. I add them to my newsletter. So I hope that they're seeing what we're doing. And when the moment is right, they might test out our product. If no, still, I mean, I'm very grateful that they provided me the insights and the feedback. So it helped us shape that first version of the product that we have right now.
Yeah, that's also an interesting point that we can explore a little bit deeper. When you get those connections on those social events, what to do with them, how to approach so that they don't forget you immediately. Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually like harder, in my opinion, to activate those leads than to get them. So yes, you come from a conference and you have, let's say, 50 people that somehow expressed interest, right? So you can like classify them as like hot leads, warm leads, cold leads. So what do you do afterwards? Well, I think it's important to follow up right away, not with the pushy sales message, but more like, I don't know, if you took a selfie together, send them that selfie and, say thank you for a great chat or great insights. And if you have a certain, maybe promotion after the conference, for example, like I send like a free beta test to all my leads so they can test out the product if it's relevant. It's good to follow up, but without, all this like formal emails. I get a lot of them after the events. This kind of generic copy pasted emails that they send to leads. So I try to send people messages on LinkedIn, and then I interact with their content. I like it. I ask them to follow my page. I mean, pretty much just like in a normal human conversation, right? Like, don't be too pushy or salesy. Don't force them to do something that they probably wouldn't. Just keep the relationship going. Send messages once in a while, share some useful content, like their content, comment on their content. And you cannot sell to a person that does not have an immediate need. So there is no, I think, like sequence that can force someone to buy from you, because you got them persuaded with the third email or the fourth email. I think the need needs to be there. There needs to be a certain sense of urgency, and your product needs to be relevant. So if all those things align, I think like in the long run, if they remember you, if you constantly put the content out there on LinkedIn, involve them in the conversation, they will remember you. But if the moment is not right, I think there is no magic solution to make them buy.
How do you manage those connections? Do you have a CRM, or do you just use LinkedIn?
No, I have a CRM. Yeah.
Which CRM do you use? Can you recommend it?
Yeah, I'm using HubSpot, and I also have something in our Notion dashboard that I just built myself just for their, visibility.
Yeah, it's important probably also to understand, to remember what you talked about and to give it a personal touch. Otherwise, it's blunt and it shouldn't look like you're only there to sell your product. It should be like you want to connect with them on a human level, I guess.
Yeah, I have a rule that every time I talk to someone during an event, right after the conversation, I make a note on my phone, like what we talked about and the smallest things as well, like that person just visited Georgia or Kazakhstan, something like this. And of course, as the evening progresses, the notes become blurrier and less comprehensive, but still, I think because you talk to so many people, you need to remember. So I try to be very structured with that. So every time I talk to someone, I write it down. And then once I come back home from an event, I structure it all. I put it in my CRM. And, it helps because you talk to a lot of people, you tend to forget certain details, but details matter a lot.
Yeah, that's also how you stand out. Most of other competitors or other companies who try to sell something, they don't do that so in so much detail. So if you do it, it's like, wow, that's very special. And people also like to feel like you paid attention.
Yeah, and that's why I like B2B, right, more than B2C, because with those details, you can actually make certain impact. I mean, it's not that hard to remember when somebody's birthday is, right? You just put it in your calendar and you send one message on LinkedIn. But people will remember that. It's just the small creative things that you can do, that will change the direction of your business. With B2C, is much harder. Like, you really, really need to experiment and experiment with content a lot. So with B2B, it's a bit more about maybe even human psychology and building lasting relationships and being in the right time in the right place. That can, bring you a long way.
Definitely. Very inspiring, I think, also for many of our audience probably. So what happened next? You said you acquired 6 clients at some point of how did it develop after the event?
Okay, so after the event, we were like, okay, so we had one initial idea, right? And the idea, let's say, stayed in the same domain, but we understood that the solution we can actually build and how we can differentiate from our competitors is a bit different. So we decided to take a step back and focus on the solution, which is actually, technically speaking, is a bit easier. So my co-founder, he started working on that. And still, to be honest, we're still working on that. It's an ongoing process. And I started focusing more as well on our marketing channels because the position had to change. So we figured out that for us, IoT industry is really good. So we've heard a lot of positive response from the IoT industry. And we also realized that it's quite underserved. So
could you explain IoT industry for our audience?
So Internet of Things, right? So connected devices. And that could be from consumer devices, let's say things that you have at your home, like smart lights or, like your phones, to more industrial automation. So anything that is a hardware, but also has a digital connectivity part to that is considered an IoT, right? So this is Internet of Things industry. And we've heard quite a lot of response for several reasons. I'm building a product that has to do with the European Union cybersecurity compliance, and their set of acts and set of regulations is specifically applied to this industry. So it's a bit complicated. And also at the same time, we've noticed that, let's say, our competitors, direct or indirect, they're not particularly focusing on that industry. And the third thing is that my co-founder comes from that background, so he really understands. He knows how it is from the inside, so that helps. So we figured out that this is one good industry after the event. And the other thing that I realized that my focus from my previous businesses really helps because non-EU companies expanding to the European Union market, they have to face all of those regulations at once. And they are quite lost. And for them, that could be actually, a stop sign, like Europe is too complex. Let's maybe postpone it, or let's not go there yet. So we thought that, okay, if we focus on those two industries and if we make our solution quite simple and, very like problem oriented, I think this is the best way to go from here. And then we see, because the product can develop in many different directions. We have some ideas, we have some bigger vision, but if we solve the immediate need for those two kind of segments, I think that was our main goal. So right now we're still in the process of finalizing that product and getting beta testers on board and, getting the first paying customers.
Do you think the European Union is one of the strictest and has the most complicated rules for this kind of, for IoT and internet security?
I think this is the narrative we've heard before, right? We all heard that Europe is complex in terms of regulations. We've heard that, European regulations, they slow down innovation. It's quite familiar narrative. And I think I'm guilty myself of that. I've said that Europe is overcomplicating things, that EU AI Act may be not the best thing for the innovation, but we still understand that Europe is a very important market. It's very lucrative. It's a big market. So naturally companies would want to expand here. So you have to deal with that. So I guess it's my vision as the founder of Ogni is to make life of those companies easier and make those regulations a bit more, simplified, so they can focus on their core business instead. So yes, Europe is complex. Europe is defragmented in some ways because there are certain regulations that are European-wide, but they leave room for interpretation for each member state to kind of tweak it and to adjust it. So yes, it's complex. There are a lot of nuances, a lot of exemptions, but that's why we're building our tool, right? Just to help companies to, understand what is applicable to them and where to go from there.
It's a very big pain, and if you are able to solve that as a startup, then they will kiss your hands, kind of.
Well, let's see. I hope we can at least help in some way.
How did you acquire those 6 clients, paying customers?
Yeah, so some of them are from my direct network. So people that I already knew and I knew they were struggling. 2 others were from events, and one that I'm particularly very happy about is an inbound organic lead through the website, which honestly hasn't even been indexed so much. And this lead is really like our ICP. So like exactly what we thought it should be. These people came to us organically. So for me, that was one of the signs of that, okay, this is the right approach.
Do you know how he found you, this organic lead?
Yeah, so basically he had to solve a problem and he started Googling, and he actually saw us being promoted on one of the events in Amsterdam, and he saw the name of the company and that we particularly, targeting non-EU companies expanding to the EU, and that was their case. So he said, okay, that makes sense. So he went on our website, and from there he said that the position made sense. So he just filled in the form and we had a follow-up call and it resonated. So yeah, basically from an event, but also through our website. So just a chain of things. So you have to be everywhere, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. It's probably, he knew already the brand, so he was searching for you specifically for this brand, and then
no, he searched for exactly like a company that solves his problem, and then he found an event where we were participating, and then there was a small pitch about us with the name of the company. So from there he went to our website. But yeah, it could happen multiple ways, right? So anything could work.
Yeah, I see one important lesson in your case is it becomes so much easier to acquire clients if you have the right business idea. If there is a big pain and not so much competition, then suddenly people are eager to find a solution like yours. And if they don't have to scroll through tens of different other alternatives, then it's so much easier. Do you have general advice how to acquire the first startup clients?
Well, it really depends on the industry and on your ICP, because I'm not targeting enterprise clients, right? So enterprise game is completely different. And it's just more complicated and the sales cycles are longer. So if you are like me targeting, let's say, mid-sized companies, tech companies as well, and in Europe, I feel like for me at least, if you're on limited budget, there are 3 ways that could work. First is you're personal immediate network. So what I did, I just went through all my LinkedIn connections and just kind of like filtered out who could be an interesting person to talk to, meaning that he either works in the right industry or, he's the right decision maker. So schedule meetings with them, not like you try to sell them, but just ask them about their everyday work life, what kind of issues or pain points they have. So this is one. Second one is definitely content marketing. So your personal brand is more important than your company brand at the beginning, or maybe actually throughout. So spend time on, developing your LinkedIn presence, or if you choose Twitter or I don't know, Threads, that could be as well. Just be consistently present and share personal stories. Everyone loves building in public stories, like how companies are born, what struggles founders go through. So definitely content marketing brings a lot of organic views. I think like you're building a relationship with your audience. And third one for me, definitely industry events. So if you're not sure which industry is applicable to you, at least identify two or three that could be. For me, it was, for example, fintech, IoT, and partially health tech. So then just try to go to events from different industries and see where you get the best response. So if you combine those three things, they're mainly free and you can already get a lot of insights. So definitely I wouldn't spend money on paid ads as an early stage startup. Not yet.
How do I recognize I'm on the right track with my content marketing?
Oof, I feel like it's such a complicated topic, and I feel like a lot of people are struggling. Everyone knows they need to build personal brand, and they almost feel like they have to. It's a must, right? And people say crazy things like you need to post every day or twice a day, like at least, and then maybe something will work out. I don't really believe in that. I do believe in consistency, but for example, saying something just for the sake of saying it, I think it's a waste of time. And I feel like we have so much digital noise right now that producing that is just pointless. So if you feel like you have a story to share, think about how it resonates with your target audience. Will it bring them any kind of value? It could be educational, entertaining could be one, it could be something personal, but how would they see it? And then share when you actually have something to say. And I wouldn't look at the amount of likes so much. If it starts a conversation, if someone, writes a meaningful comment, or if someone messages you afterwards and asks you more, I think this is a great indication. But even if it doesn't happen, still, like, if you get some engagement and if you feel like this is the right story to share, just continue and experiment with different types of content, because like anything could work. It could be long form text, it could be, like a short video. I don't think there is right format or the right frequency, but you definitely need to be out there.
Yeah, true. I think it's also, first of all, to show that there is a human behind the company, behind the startup, behind the offer, and also kind of a capable human to a certain degree, because there is a lot of noise. Everyone is so much spammy content and spammy offers, maybe also, and not reliable companies. And if you publish something of value, something with your face, maybe, then you show, okay, there is a human, and this human is able to think clearly. Of course, depending on different, sometimes it's just for fun, just to show your personality, and sometimes about showing your capability a little bit, helping the target audience. If they got help, then they already are thankful to a certain degree.
Yeah, I think it's good to have a kind of a mix of different types of content, but I would definitely advise against oversharing, especially on LinkedIn. I've seen so many of those cases where people start sharing personal things that are just really out of place for LinkedIn, and they do get a lot of engagement, but I do find it a bit cringy, and I don't think it's the right message for your company brand. So I would advise against that. But sharing personal stories related to business or related to your professional life, I think it's fine. But sharing, like these jokes, how like I divorced my wife and those are 10 things that taught me about B2B SaaS development, I think it's a bit cringy.
Yeah, if people try to make it personally, but then it's so clear they want to sell you something, and it's so clear they want to connect it at any cost to their business. So yeah, it's everyone. Humans are not that stupid. They can see through unauthenticity
Yeah.
if it's not authentic.
And I would also advise, if you are building a startup or if you're in sales, try to not post content on LinkedIn or any other social media that is something controversial or political or too personal about your personal life, because I check those things and I know other people check it as well. So if you're in a position where you're trying to sell something or you're fundraising, try to avoid those controversial topics, because at the end of the day, it's not going to serve you any good. And I think oversharing will not bring you the long way. So check that your social media is in order, because everyone does due diligence. When you hire someone, when you build in partnerships, or if you're about to invest in someone, you're going to check beyond LinkedIn. You're going to check their Instagram, their Twitter, anything that they have online. So be careful with that as well.
Yeah, that's true. That can divide people.
Right?
And
I've
why
seen, yeah.
to lose some part of the people just because you believe in other things?
Yeah, I think like we need to be careful these days about oversharing on social media.
Yeah, everyone has, on certain topics, there are very strong opinions, and no one is able to like accept him. It feels sometimes like you are the enemy if you have a different opinion about very strong topics.
Right.
So better to stay away from that. And
Yeah.
you don't need to become best friends with your clients. It's just on a professional level.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like our society is enough polarized, like we don't need to contribute more to this narrative. So, and especially if it's going to serve against your company development.
Yeah, those vanity metrics that you mentioned in the beginning, they can be misleading. If you get some posts, get a lot of comments, a lot of likes and hearts, you might think, oh, that's the type of content I have to post so that I get more distributed. But you have to also look from a professional perspective. Not every like, not every comment is the same, especially on B2B and LinkedIn. It's all about quality and relevance, not about just our goal is not to, or the goal is not to become an influencer just to get thousands of 10,000s of followers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're building a B2C brand, having a large audience on Instagram or TikTok, that can serve you quite well, right? If you're selling something that is a bit more generic and B2C, sure. But if you're in a B2B business, it's more important to have, attention of your decision makers versus, posting something that is very generic and grabs attention with their, mass.
What are your main priorities at the moment and for this foreseeable future?
Yeah, I think like finishing up the product definitely is the biggest one. So right now, all our attention goes there. So fine tuning our model, making sure that, it doesn't hallucinate, that it serves, its purpose and it brings value to people. Definitely more beta tests in order to understand what people are missing, what brings them value. And after that, I mean, probably we are going to start fundraising. We have to go to the next stage. I mean, we already are fundraising, but we need to go in a more like active stage of that. So yeah, and definitely along the way, we're actively looking for more clients and more feedback.
Why is fundraising so important for you?
I mean, we got our product where we could with like two of us and the help of some engineers and some freelancers. We have, like a bigger goal, and we've heard from our clients that there are certain needs for bigger things. We cannot pull it off ourselves. It will take forever and the market moves quite fast. So if we want to capture this momentum, we definitely need some funds.
Is there a danger of creating not even a minimum viable product, but even like to go network, getting interested leads and talking about a product that doesn't exist, and then realizing that it's not even possible technically to develop such a solution? How do you avoid that also?
It's not impossible, or it's not possible?
Yeah, so you promised a product and then you realize from the technical point of view, oh, you are not able to develop this kind of product.
Honestly, like people have such little attention span that they will forget about your product like in 5 minutes. So if you promise them something and you cannot deliver, it's okay. It's a great problem
Yeah.
to have if they text you tomorrow and ask you where's the product. I don't think it ever happened to me. So it's okay to sell, kind of thin air and try to sell the product that doesn't exist. It's not a scam. It's not going to damage your brand. It just gives you certain validation. But of course, you shouldn't promise things that are impossible. But if you have the validation of the idea and people want that product, that is an amazing problem to have. So you better find these resources to build it then in the shortest time possible, if it's realistic. But yeah.
In worst case, you can slim down, make it more simpler than you were expecting. But it's probably, especially if you had a developer who was active developing this idea, he probably understands what is possible. So he was not just inventing something totally out of the world.
Oh, 100%. Like all the ideas that we had were based on the tech that was already kind of hub developed and on what we could do, given that we're only 2 full-time co-founders and we had some engineers. So that was our initial, criteria that if we go for a startup, it needs to be reasonable that we can pull it off at least to the certain degree that we could sell this product. So yeah, we didn't go, too wild.
Yeah, that makes total sense. It's also important to have some understanding in the industry that you are trying to access. Otherwise, you can't distinguish between ideas that sound good and ideas that can be reality.
No, 100%. Yeah. Honestly, that is partially why I chose this product, is because our target audience are technical people. And it's easier because first of all, they understand innovation, they understand technology, and we speak their language. We know this type of people. So for me, that was one of the main factors.
Amazing. Very, very inspiring and very interesting. I think many valuable lessons we could learn from that journey. And there is much more to come. I'm really excited. Maybe we can have another episode in 1 or 2 years when you became a world conglomerate.
Oh, wow. Let's see. But definitely there are a lot of learnings on the way and people should share more, it can feel lonely when you're building something. So definitely founders need to share their pain points and their struggles.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was in the same position. And now, 15 years later, I feel like, why didn't it would be so nice to rehearse these things that I'm learning now. Back then, it would make such a big difference. And entrepreneurship is so hard. And only if you share information, it becomes a little bit more easier. The corporations, the big companies, they have so much resources, so much resources that as a startup with a few founders, you are in a big disadvantage, and you can only succeed if you use the best practices and don't try everything from zero and to learn it yourself and to experiment and fail. And there will be enough failing even without those basic things like marketing, client acquisition, sales, and so on.
100%. I mean, that's a big advantage of being in a startup. We don't have so much red tape, right? We can be more bold. We can, take risks. So we can experiment with our product, experiment with our sales and marketing. So we have a lot of freedom, unlike corporates. But honestly, thanks to people like you that you give stage to founders to share and to be vulnerable and to, share their advice with the rest. I think that's super important.
Thank you very much. Is there anything you would like to say to our audience? Would you like them to do something to connect with you or something like that?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I'm very happy to connect with people on LinkedIn, but particular for what I'm building right now, if you are a growing tech startup in the EU or you are thinking to enter the European market, and if you want to check whether you're compliant with the European Union cybersecurity regulations, I'm very happy to offer a free report that gives you an overview of what is applicable to you, how to deal with it, and in which priorities. So, reach out to me. And otherwise, let's just connect on LinkedIn. Honestly, in life, serendipity brought me so far that you just never know where this random LinkedIn connection could lead to.
That's so true. Thank you so much, Masha. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, Will. And honestly, thank you for doing this amazing job.
Thank you. Bye bye.